Okay, man. They need to bring back this song, man. I don't know if it's just nostalgia, but so clear of anything they're doing now. But yes, people, tomorrow, or today for some of you, the Premier League is back. Book your calendars, suspend your meetings. The Premier League is back, and we are all super excited, man. Hoping for a great season. Hope all of you are doing well. And I'm just gonna go a little, not really predictions. I guess it is predictions, but it's more of a preview. I'm not too into predictions. I think predictions can be fun. You laugh at how badly you messed up. But I just want to look at every single Premier League team going into this season, and I want to see, you know, just give you my opinions, and I want to hear what you guys think as well. Who do you think is going to get relegated? Who's going to win? Mid-table fights? Anything? Any hot takes for the season? I want to know. But yes, I'm going to get it started. I have all the transfer news open up here. I have a tier list because I love tier lists, and that's how we're going to do the table. And I also have last season's table, just as a little reference. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. Actually, I might just quickly open the Premier League app. Bro, is it here? Perfect. And we can go to matches. And this way we can also get the squads in case we need that. So I think that is going to be absolutely perfect. So let us head into the tier list quick. And now the first team I want to talk about is the team I think is going to come last. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know too much about this team. I didn't watch a lot of the championship, but I'm putting Leeds in the bottom position. I think Leeds are an incredible club, massive club, huge club. And last time they came up, they stayed a couple of years and went back down. But then this last year, they completely destroyed the championship, demolished everyone, scored a boatload of goals, came right back up. And even though all that happened, they were still talking about getting rid of the coach, Daniel Fark. And I thought that was a bit weird, but it is understandable when you look at Daniel Fark's history in the Premier League and what he's done in the Premier League. He's always gets relegated every single time he came up with Norwich. But I'd love, for a different story. Last 2 seasons, every team that came up went straight back down. I would love it to be different. But for Leeds, my main issue with them is just it's a big jump and the firepower. I feel like every team in the Premier League, I can kind of say who's going to score 10 goals for them. And that's the thing with all these promoted sides. I don't see anyone necessarily who's going to score 10 goals for them. So that's why I have Leeds at the bottom. You let me know what you guys think. I think they have made some decent signings. Let me just look at it real quick. Longstaff, I guess, some experience. Lucas Inmecha, we kind of had a lot of expectations for him back in the past. I don't really know too much. I don't think he's lived up to it yet, but this is a good chance to prove himself. And Yakabijo, I think that's the best signing they've made. Left back, I believe, from Udinese. So I want to see what he can do. I think I've heard some things about him in the past. So look, I think there will be a better fight. I think they'll be better than who was last season. Wow, I honestly can't remember. Let's check the table. Oh, I think they're going to put up a better showing than Southampton for sure. But I just don't think, I'm just not confident in them staying up. And unfortunately, 19th is also Burnley. And the thing for me with Burnley is last season they came up based on their defensive solidity. I mean, we have to give full credit to Burnley and Scott Parker for what they did last season. They can see what was it, 15, 16 goals in 48 games? No, 46 games or 46. That's ridiculous defense and kept so many clean sheets, broke all the English records. But my problem once again is the goals. So now I think they brought in some decent players. I know they brought in I think they're about to bring in Dubravka to replace James Trafford. So even though I think James Trafford is a big loss, I think Dubravka could be good in that he has that Premier League experience. Trafford was here a while back, but he didn't do too well. So I think Dubravka could be good. I like Ugochukwu, but Ugochukwu also got relegated with Southampton last year. I think he was a decent player in that midfield, but I'm not sure if it takes them over the mark, to be honest with you. And I mean, you can have a look. I know they also signed, what's his name? The Chelsea striker. I always forget his name. The Chelsea striker, Broha. And Broha, I think he had like something good coming for him like the past few years, but then obviously that injury And recently, he's just kind of been like a non-factor. I'm not so sure if I back him to score 10 goals. I really hope he does. I hope he gets back on that momentum he was before. And, maybe Burnley can stay up. I expect they're going to play very defensive football, which is why I have them above Leeds. I think that kind of defensive football it's a better route for a championship team trying to stay in the Premier League. I think it's a better route to play defensive. We saw them a few years ago when they tried to go expansive with Vincent Company, just losing games. It was terrible. He got a promotion though, so fair enough. But I do think there are some decent signings. Yeah, I said Dubravka, Ugochukwu, Marcus Edwards. I think that's permanent now. I think Tuanzebe could be good. I think he was solid for Ipswich last season, but I just don't think they have enough. I really don't. Like, who's going to score the goals? You tell me, Burnley fans. Maybe I'm wrong, and I really want to see some of these teams that went down. I'm sorry, that came up, not go straight back down, but I just don't really see it, if I'm being completely honest with you guys. But, yeah, so I do have Burnley in 19th. And then in 18th, the last team to get relegated, I have Sunderland. Now, I know the Sunderland hype train is going crazy right now. And I understand. Just have a look at the transfers. They've really, really gone crazy with it. And honestly, I respect it. I think that might be the way these days because the gap is so big that I think you just have to go for it. And I think Xhaka is a good signing. I'm not so sure if he's going to get the Xhaka we're seeing winning titles at Leverkusen or title races with Arsenal. But I think he brings that experience. He's already the captain. He's going to bring that experience, help them. I think Adingra is a good pickup. But once again, Adingra is not a goal scorer. He's been a moments play in the Premier League. We see some games like, he's giving this guy real trouble. But I don't think that keeps you in the league. We saw that with Southampton last season. We saw Suleimana, some games. He's like putting these guys on fire. I remember the United game, but sometimes it's just not enough. But I do think Southampton have the biggest chance. I think this is going to be a massive one for them. This Habib Diarra, kind of like a midfielder, attacking midfielder, creative guy. If he can really give them the goods, I think they do have a chance. Enzo Lafay is a big one. Because I remember Enzo Lafay a few years ago, we were talking about AC Milan. Those were the kind of transfers we were talking about. And then he goes to Sunderland, and people like, some eyelids. But he's got them up. He was really, really good the back half of last season. Can he do it in the Premier League? I don't know too. Raniero, like a few years ago, he was like, a Champions League player. So it is an interesting signing. But my problem here is right here, Mark Yu. Now, look, I think Mark Yu is a talented, youngster. I think he could be that guy. Hopefully, I hope he turns into that guy for Sunderland. But I'm just not sure that, a young, inexperienced striker is the way to go as a newly promoted team. I'd have liked to see him get somebody who has some Premier League experience, But overall, I think it has been pretty good. They lost Joe Bellingham, but I think for that price, it was a good deal. Help them, reinforce. And I'd love to see Sunderland staying. I think they are the closest team to staying in, but I do have them just outside, just getting relegated. That is my prediction. Next up, for 17th place, just escaping the drop zone, I have Wolverhampton Wanderers. And Wolves, I think Wolves did finish 17th last season as well. Sorry. Spurs, man. What happened last season? That's crazy. But yeah, Wolves finished 16th. And let's not forget, Wolves were deep in a relegation battle for a long time. Then came in their new coach. Oh my God, what's his name? Vitor Pereira. Vitor Pereira came in and he changed it up, man. That back three, I think they're signing of Agbadu. Agbadu was really, really good. He helped solidify that defense. And there's some things I do like about this Wolves team. I kind of do like their pivot. I really do. I think Joao, no. Oh my, Joao, what's the Brazilian guy? Andre and what's his name? Let me just, okay, give me one quick sec. Yep, I know. I have an old man brain. But let's see. Joao Neves? No, it's not Joao Neves. What the hell am I saying? Joao Gomez. Yes, Joao Gomez and Andre. I think it's a nice little pivot. Some tech. Like, they have a bit of everything. Some feistiness, some tackling, some tech. I think Bellegarde, you want to see more from him this season. But yeah, I think the main thing for me with Wolves and why I have them above is Jorgen Strand Larsen. I think Strand Larsen's season went a bit under the radar last season because he scored 12, 13, 14 goals for them. But obviously because they had Cunha, he kind of went under the radar. And I just feel like having a player that's going to score you more than 10 goals is really going to help. As far as their transfer business, Obviously, they've lost Cunha, they've lost Ignori. Those are two big ones. I don't think the rest are too serious, to be honest. Too many other losses, but yeah, I think for Lopez, I don't know too much about him. But John Arias, he was playing really well in the Club World Cup for Fluminense, and he's just like this attacking midfielder, a bit tricky, but he's a bit older, and I feel like sometimes we disrespect those leagues unless you're very young. But look, he's a big chance for him. He's getting into Europe. He's gonna try and show what he can do, and I think he could do well and replace Cunha. So I just think for me, it's mainly Strand Larson that has me put them Wolves surviving, but I think it's gonna be tough. I do think there will be a challenge from these teams, and the next team I actually have is West Ham. I have West Ham finishing 16th. And let's talk about West Ham. I mean, what happened to West Ham, man? Ever since they lost David Moyes, it's just been a very rocky West Ham. West Ham were kind of that team, like they were kind of like the Villa on Newcastle for a while. They were pushing the established Big Six, but all of a sudden they're just not doing it anymore. And I think last year Lopetegui wasn't good. I don't think Graham Potter has been good at all, but I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. He's gonna get his first full season. And I think they have some good players, man. I think Fulkrug, him getting injured last season was really difficult for them because they had to go back to Mikel Antonio, who is now gone. And that's one thing I'm going to talk about West Ham. They've lost some of like the old staples of their Moyes era. So it's going to be difficult, but I do think Fulkrug getting a full season will be important for them. I know people are very mixed on the Callum Wilson signing, but I don't know. It just seems so West Ham, Like we see them try players like Skamaka, Felipe Anderson, and these guys don't work. All of a sudden, they bring in like a Callum Wilson and gives them a good 2-3 years. I don't know. It just seems so West Ham. But I don't think they need him to start either. So I don't think it should be too bad. But yeah, I think the losses are kind of big, Cresswell, Kufau, Fabianski, Zuma. These are like the guys that we saw. These are the guys that we saw. Sorry, give me a second. These are the guys that we saw really carry that Moyes era. But one thing I would say, I kind of like their signings. I think Kyle Walker-Peters on a free is a good deal. I really do. El Hadji Malik Diouf. I mean, I think we all saw what this guy did to England from that left back position. I think Cresswell has been an amazing servant to the club, but I do think it was time, and I think this guy could really be a problem for teams. And honestly, the one I like the most is Mads Hermansen. I think last year was a bit of rotation between Fabianski and Areola. And I think this Hermansen guy obviously got relegated with Leicester City, but I think he was a phenomenal keeper last season. Made a lot of saves, and I think West Ham will be under the cosh for a few games. I think he's going to make a lot of saves. I think he's the best signing they've made, 100%. So, yeah, for that, I'm kind of excited for West Ham. I think West Ham are a bit volatile. I think they could go a lot higher, but I just can't put them any higher than this based off what I've been seeing so far. Okay. Next up in 15th place, I have Brentford. And it seems like the new craze is, Brentford are going to get relegated. And I'm like, huh? I don't know. I don't really see it happening. Now, look, Brentford have lost some really, really key pieces. I mean, Boema, who's been their best player for the past 2 years, really took over that goal-scoring burden from Ivan Toney. Wissa is another one who looks like he's going to be out. Scored 19 goals last season. That's 40 goals gone. Just like that. Norgard, their captain, just a ever-reliant presence in the midfield, and it just kind of helped every single game. And obviously, for me, the most important one they've lost is Thomas Frank, who's been there through the divisions, made them a very stable Premier League club. So I understand why people are very, iffy on Brentford. And I think they finished 10th last season, which is why I've dropped them to 15th. But I don't think they're going to get relegated. Number one, I think Kevin Schade last season really came into his own, and I think he's going to take a lot more of that burden, scoring some goals. And then the new coach, I believe it's Keith Andrews, the former set piece coach. A lot of people are like, but he's never managed a professional team. But I kind of have like a different view of it. I think it might almost be a good thing because Keith Andrews has been with Brentford. He's seen the way Frank operates. He knows the way the Moneyball system operates. And I think now he's going to come in and not like the whole system isn't going to change too much. So I think that level of continuity is going to be better than bringing in a whole new coach with whole new philosophies. That's why I don't think it's as bad an appointment as people think. And I do like some of their business. So let's go to Brentford real quick and see what they've been doing. Brentford. Yes, firstly, let's look at the outs. Obviously, they lost Mark Flecken, and they brought in Kelleher, and I think it's going to be a big season for Kelleher. I'm a Liverpool fan, and everybody's been saying, "Oh, Kelleher deserves to start," so now he's going to prove it for us. Anthony Milambo looks like a very exciting young player. I want to see what he's going to do. Sometimes with Brentford, these players don't always immediately integrate, so it might take a while, but I'm excited for it. Henderson, I think Henderson is going to try and get into that Norgard role. I'm not so sure if he's going to get as many minutes as Norgard was getting, but I do think he brings some experience, some quality in there. I also wonder, it's a World Cup year. Is he trying to, sneak into a World Cup squad? I mean, I don't know, but I don't think it's terrible. I mean, for free, you get Henderson, a good leader, will help in Keith Andrews, who, maybe not doesn't have all the authority. A player like Henderson that's won the Premier League, won the Champions League, is an England international. I think maybe he could help to deliver those messages. So I kind of do like it. And I think Kevin Schade, I still think they have good players. I think Damsgaard had a great season last year. I think they have a very solid defense. And I just think there's going to be a sense of continuity. And I think that's why I have them finishing 15th. I don't quite see the fall off as drastic as some other people have. But next up, in 14th place, I have Crystal Palace. And I know Crystal Palace are like eternal 12th, but the reason I have them 14th, I am factoring in transfer rumors. I think Palace have a really, really good 11. I really do. I think one thing about Crystal Palace is I think Crystal Palace on their day can beat anyone. We just saw it in the Community Shield. Like that squad on their day, can lock and defend and beat anybody in this league. We just saw it with the Community Shield, I think but the thing that worries me with Palace is these transfer rumors, Eze. I really think Eze has come into his own under Glasner. What a coach, by the way. I want to give Glasner his flowers. But I really think Eze has come into his own under Glasner in terms of I just feel like sometimes he was playing too central or too far out wide, but now he's just put Eze in that left half space, and he's just been cooking because it's not too isolated in the middle, but then also he's not too far out wide. So I just think it's been a great adjustment from Glasner. And then also the other one is Mark Gahey, who's an important part of the defense, very important part, the captain and everything. I think really solidifies that back three. So losing those two is why I've dropped them all the way to 14th. I think they probably will lose one of them. I'm not sure if they'll lose both. If they lose both, it could be problems, but I don't think they'll get relegated. I really do think they have a lot of other quality players. Before, it was kind of like, Eze is carrying this team, but all of a sudden, Mateta has really stepped into his own. Adam Wharton is just looking like a ridiculous midfielder. I think Ismail Assar is really a problem now on that right-hand side. He's just so electric. His finishing has improved a lot. So I think almost, I could say he was almost as good as Eze in the league last season. Obviously, Eze did his thing in the FA Cup. But so I have Ismail Assar. I think Daniel Munoz is really locking in on the right wing back. He's a real problem. Mitchell, the more defensive one. And they've also brought in Bernard Sosa, who's a more overlapping left wing back. So I think he could also... They could now change up if they don't want such a defensive one. I mean, we can have a look at some of their other transfers just to check. But they haven't lost anyone too important yet, I don't think. Obviously, Joe Ward, Schlupp, but these guys aren't too important. But it's really just Borna Sosa so far. So we'll see. But I don't think they lose both. If they do lose both, then Crystal Palace might be in for a problem. But that's why I put them at 14th, I believe. Yeah. And 13th, I have Everton. Okay, let's talk about Everton. I think there's quite a few people who are a lot higher in Everton than me. So if they do like last season, Everton finished 13th, and I think they're going to finish 13th again. I think that this is the first season in the new stadium. Obviously, Goodison iconic, but they've moved on, and I just think they need to stabilize. One stable season in this thing, and I think that's why they have David Moyes. I think David Moyes is just the coach to do that, and I think Everton have some really exciting players. I think Iliman Ndiaye. I mean, last season, I thought he was phenomenal. I know he doesn't get the GA like that, but he's just like, this kind of old school maverick player that just kind of takes games by the scruff of the neck. And I think he was a real star player from Everton last season. But what I will say about Everton is there have been quite a few departures. And, it's not necessarily the most important players, but it's just players that have been there a long time and just been very consistent for them. So players like Doucouré, I think Doucouré is going to be a big loss. Doucouré is just ever reliable. There was a point he was scoring goals for them for fun. So I think that is going to be a big loss. And Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I mean, I do think it was time. We had high hopes for him. I hope he does well at Sunderland. Sunderland went to? I can't remember. But uh, or Leeds, one of the two. But I do hope he does well there. But I do think it was time to say goodbye. I think Beto had a real breakout campaign for him last season, and Young could also be a big one. But I will say I do really like their business so far. So I think Thierry Barry is a exciting striker. Exciting striker. Let's just have a quick look at him. I'm actually not so sure how old he is. 22 years old. 22 years old. So like a new exciting striker for Everton, and I think they need that. And I don't think he's gonna have like all the pressure on him because Beto is also there. So I think Beto will be the starting striker for next season. I also do really like Dewsbury Hall. I think Dewsbury Hall is gonna be a good signing. I think he's gonna take up that Ducore role, and I think he's a good player. I think Jack Grealish. I'm not actually so high on Jack Grealish, to be honest with you. Um, I kind of like the idea of these clubs signing players that can grow and then have resale value. But I guess it's just a loan. I don't think Grealish has been too good the past few seasons. But if Grealish can find some of that Villa form, I think it would be a great addition. And I mean, it's a loan. I saw £50 million buy obligation. It's a bit sticky, but he could do really well. He could do really well. So I do like Everton's business, and yeah, I just think they're gonna consolidate. I think David Moyes really really did a great job with them last season. They were struggling under Sean Dyche, and it was a complete revelation, and they just completely changed their form. So I think they're gonna take some of that into this season. New stadium, the fans are gonna be up for it. I really do think Everton could do a lot better than 13th, but I'm just being a bit cautious because sometimes with that new stadium syndrome, teams kind of struggle a little bit. Okay, but in 12th place, I have AFC Bournemouth. And I believe this is also a bit of a drop from where they were last season, ninth. Well, I think that's understandable because they have lost a lot of players, particularly in that defense. They lost Kepa, although I think they've replaced him quite well. They've lost Zaberni, they've lost Hoyson, and they've lost Kirkes. By the way, listen to this. Kepa, Arsenal, Kirkes, Liverpool, Zaberni, PSG, Hoyson, Madrid. That just shows how high quality these guys are. So I think it will be difficult, but I have a lot of faith in Areola. Also, I think the fact that their attack has remained untouched. I think they have a very dynamic attack with Evan Nilsson, Utara, Clivert, Tavernier, Semenyo. I just think it's really dynamic, and I think the fact that they haven't been touched there is kind of good. So, look, I think their attack is going to be at the same level, and then the defense is going to struggle a bit, but I expect them to address this. They might have already, to be honest. I haven't really looked at their signings. Let's have a quick look at Bournemouth transfers. Bruh. Am I tripping? Do I not know my alphabet? Okay. Okay, yes. I think Petrovic is a really, really good replacement for I think Petrovic is a really good replacement for what's his name? Kepa. I think he was really, really good at Strasbourg last year. I'm surprised Chelsea didn't keep him, to be honest, but I think that's a good thing. I think Adrien Truffet is one of the best attacking left backs in France a few years ago, and it seems like his stock isn't quite as high as it was then. But I don't know. I still have some faith. I feel like Bournemouth is gonna have a nice environment around him. I think Areola is gonna wrap his shoulder around him, and I think we might see him get those levels again. I really wouldn't be surprised. And then we have Diakite, who I'll be so honest with you, I do not know much about. Okay, but he's a center back, decent age. Sometimes you just have to trust Bournemouth's recruitment. You know what I mean? They tend to do quite well, and I just have a lot of faith in Areola to stabilize. I don't think they'll be as good as last season, pushing for Europe, but I do think they will be stable around there. And at 10th place, I have Fulham. And I think Areola is one of those coaches that, I just have so much faith in. And the next one is going to be Marco Silva. I just think Marco Silva has really made Fulham a really stable, solid Premier League team. And I think this season they are going to be pushing into the top half of the table, partly because they haven't lost anyone. Because we see all these people around them. We see Bournemouth have lost players. Everton lost key players in the past, maybe not so much anymore. Palace could lose some players. Brentford, could lose players. I think Brighton have lost Joao Pedro. Sorry, Brentford lost players, not could lose players. But I think Fulham, their squad has just stayed completely the same. And also, I think that might be due to the fact that Fulham, they tend to buy a lot of like players who couldn't make it at top clubs. So, players like Harry Wilson, Reece Nelson was there, Emil Smith Rowe, who I'm expecting a better season from this year, Alex Iwobi. So because these guys have already tried it at like Andreas Pereira, because these guys have already tried it at the top clubs and it hasn't worked, it kind of seems to me like players, like even though they're doing really well in the Premier League this season, top clubs aren't coming in to take their players. So Anthony Robinson staying, I know he's injured for the start of the season, I believe, but I think that's going to be big for them. But I mean, look at their business. Only one guy in, who I don't know much about, but they just released a bunch of like squad players, so it's going to be roughly the same squad. I think Marco Silva. I think at the top of the Premier League this year, it's all about additions because everybody's bringing in a lot of players. But in this mid pack, a lot of people are losing players. So the fact that Fulham haven't lost anybody, I think they finished just outside the top 10 last season, if I'm not wrong, 11th. So I think they might just jump up one spot, just be pretty much exactly what they were last season. And yeah, I just really like Fulham. I think they're just a very solid London club. So okay, now in ninth place. Wait a second. 20th, 19th, 18th, 13th. No, 20th, 19th, 18th, 17th, 16th, 15th, 14th, 13th. My fault. So this is 12, 11. Oopsies. Oh. I missed one. My fault. So I actually think Forest are going to finish 11th. Fulham still finished 10th. But I think Forest are going to finish 11th behind Fulham. And my reason, I've seen people a lot lower on Forest than me. And yes, I know they technically overperformed last season. But their defense, they do have like statistically one of the better defenses in the league. I know it fell off a bit towards the end of last season. But they haven't lost any of those players. Milenkovic is still there. Ola Aina is still there. Nico Williams is still there. Murillo is still there. So I think the defense is going to be the same level. I think the midfield was very underrated last season. Anderson was so good. And obviously they have lost Alanga, which is a big one. But they kept Gibbs White, which I actually think is going to be very important for them. I think the main reason I have them a bit lower is just because they did overperform last season. And this season they're also going to be in the Europa League. Oh, to be fair, which is also a thing for Palace. But this season they're also going to be in the Europa League. And I just feel like they already overperformed, plus the extra games. It could be a bit difficult. I think players like Chris Wood, is he going to hit 20 again? I don't doubt Chris Wood. Chris Wood, up to no good. I don't doubt Chris Wood because, he's proven that he's a very, very capable Premier League striker. But is he going to do that again? I'm not so sure. So I just have them dropping off a little bit. I think, yeah, the Euro plus the fact they lost Alanga. But let's see. I know they have signed quite a few players actually. Forest. Let me just look at it real quick. Dan Ndoye, that's one I don't know too much about, but we're gonna see what he can do. But you see, yeah, really, in losses it's only Alanga. So, I think they are trying to sign somebody as we speak. I can't remember his name, new guy. But you just have to, this is what they do in Nottingham Forest. They sign a lot of players, and some of them work, some of them don't. But I just think they have a really, really settled and solid squad. Yates is there. I think Chris Wood is still going to be the striker. Going to have Odoi, who's going to have another season. Maybe he becomes the Alanga now and really has his break, even though it was good last season. So, yeah, I do have them 11 just behind Fulham. I forgot to put that in. And, okay, in ninth place, I have Tottenham Hotspur. And I feel like I've seen people so high on Tottenham, and I'm a bit like, huh? I mean, I don't really get why so many people are so high on Spurs. Don't get me wrong. I don't think Spurs are 17th bad, but they were terrible last season. They were garbage. They sucked. And I think maybe the Europa League plays a part in that. And I do think Thomas Frank is going to make 17th to 9th is a big jump. And I think that's going to be largely down to Thomas Frank. A lot of people do say they have decent defenders. Udogi, Romero, Van de Ven, and Jed Spence is also there. Pedro Porro is there. Danso. We saw they might play a back three, as we just saw in tougher games that we just saw in the Super Cup last season. So I do think they have good players around, but I think the defense will be a lot better. I think they have different kinds of options in midfield. They can go very defensive, like we saw against PSG with Palhinha, Papi Metassar, and Bentancur. I don't really know what's going on with Bissouma, if he's going to leave or not. But I do think they need some more attacking options, especially with Madsen injured. So that's one thing I'm gonna say right now. Spurs are linked with Savinho and Madison currently. So right now, Madison, Eze as a replacement for the injured Madison, and I do think if they get both, they could be a lot higher. Particularly Eze, I think Eze, if Madison's out, Eze is gonna be a really important player for them. A little bit of creativity, but I'm just not super sold on Spurs because I don't think they have like a single world class attacker. I don't think Son has been as a world class level for a few years, but now he's gone, so there's not even any hope of him, getting back to that level. I think Solanke, he's very good with the link up play, but in terms of scoring goals last season, he was poor. He didn't score enough, let's be honest. Richarlison is still there. Is he going to contribute? I don't really know. And they have a lot of young wingers. Matthias Tell, Brennan Johnson, although he scored some goals, to be fair. Odoberg is still there. I think Kudus could be a big one. I think Kudus could be a big signing for them. I think he just adds a little bit of, not so much creativity, but just drive in that attack, a bit more maturity, a bit more filled out. So yeah, and I think they do have young players. I'm not so sure how much Archie Gray and Bergvall are gonna play this season. I hope they do play more. I don't really think they need any more midfielders. I like the idea of the young guys being the backups for the more experienced guys in there. So I have Spurs at ninth. I don't think I'm quite as high as them as most people, but I do think they will be in the top half. I think there will be a big improvement, and I think that's a solid season personally, for Frank's first season getting in there. So in eighth, I have Brighton and Hove Albion, and let's just have a look at where Brighton finished last season real quick. I think it was around ninth. Okay, they did finish eighth last season, and by quite a gap. I do think Brighton are just a cut above those mid-table clubs, and I do think they haven't been quite as ransacked as the Bournemouths or the Brentfords. They haven't been as ransacked. Obviously, they lost Joao Pedro, which is a big loss. But I mean, Joao Pedro didn't score that many goals for them last year outside of penalties. He scores quite a few penalties. So they will need a new taker. But I've seen Matt O'Reilly linked away, and I think he kind of had a poor season last year. I was kind of thinking, maybe this will be the season he really comes into it. But it does kind of look like Matt O'Reilly might be on the way out. But I think I want to talk about Hertzler here. I think Hertzler had an underrated season personally last year, coming in for De Zerbi, the youngest coach in Premier League history or something like that, and to just very, very stable eighth place. They were a bit inconsistent, but I do think his second season, he's gonna be a bit more experienced with this squad, a bit more experience in the Premier League. I think he could solidify. I'm not so sure they could push above this, but I'm not so sure with the way the top teams have strengthened. But let's look at Brighton's business. I think Brighton just have so many different young players coming through at all times. So now let's look at the team. I mean, look at the ends, man. But outs, Adingra is a loss, but he wasn't a starter necessarily. Estupinian is a big loss, but they do have the Kwaipa, they have Freddie Kadioglu, so those guys are gonna have to step up more this season. Joao Pedro is the big one, really. Evan Ferguson, the hype was too much. But when I look at the people they have brought in, I think Maxim de Kuiper, people are talking about him going to Arsenal, clubs like that, but nope, he goes to Brighton, and don't be surprised they're flipping him for 50 million in a few years. There's Charalampos Koustulas. I heard people calling him the next Greek superstar, so we're going to see. We trust Brighton. We know what Brighton do. Boskagli was getting quite a bit of hype a few years ago, so we know Brighton, they just help these young players. Very stable club. I think they kept most of their guys. Mitoma is still there. I think Rutter is going to have a bigger season. Danny Welbeck, Mr. Reliable, is still there. So, yeah. I do think maybe they do. I mean, they did get Boskagli, but I do just worry about their defense a bit. I think Dunk is getting older. Is Veltman still there? I'm actually not so sure. But what's the other guy, the Dutch guy? What's his name? But I think he's very solid, to be fair. I can't remember. Let's check the squads. Brighton. Bro, I can't believe I forget these people's names sometimes. Verbruggen is going to be the full-time coach, I assume. Lamptey. Okay, Igor Julio is there. Is this guy. This is what I'm talking about. Paul Van Heck. I think he's been really good. So I am a bit worried about the defense, but look at the midfield options, man. Baleba. I almost forgot about Baleba. Baleba, if he stays, that's gonna be big for them. Although I'm not too worried about if he goes, to be honest, because they could get a lot of money. I trust them to invest it. But if he stays, that's gonna be big for them. They just have a lot of players, man. Look at the squad compared to Fulham. It's massive. So I just think, yeah, not in Europe also. So I can just see Brighton finishing eight, just outside the top seven. But I think they will push for those places. And then in seventh place, I have Manchester United. Okay, so I know it's a big jump. I don't understand why so many people are so much higher on Spurs than United. I think United have done better business than Spurs so far, I'll be honest. And they finished above Spurs, to be fair. I think maybe people just rate the Spurs squad more in general. But I think one thing we don't talk about last year is the kind of suicide Amorim put his team on in January. He came in, he did not have enough attackers, and then he decided, or I don't know if it was him, but they got rid of Anthony and Rashford after they had already lost Sancho earlier. So then he just ended up having only Garnacho, Hoyland, and Diallo. And then Diallo quickly went down, and the whole thing was just a complete disaster. But this season, he's not going to be at a lack for options because they have replaced the whole attack. Sesko, Cunha, and Buemo. And honestly, in a vacuum, these are all three good signings, I think. I think for me, the most important one for me there is Cunha, I'll be honest. I think Cunha has that kind of maverick star power that even if United aren't doing, like, even if the structure isn't working, because I'm still not fully sold on Amorim, but even if the structure isn't working, I just think Cunha can make something out of nothing. And Buemo, I think he is a bit more system dependent, but also just a player that sharpshooter from anywhere can get it off. And Sesko, I mean, young striker, a lot of money. It is a lot of money, but I'm not necessarily against it over Watkins. I think there is higher upside. I don't necessarily expect United to be challenging for, important things soon. So maybe getting for the younger guy does make a bit more sense. There's a lot of pressure on him, though. It is Manchester United. People are a bit, already iffy because of Hoyland and these other young strikers flopping. But I do think within him and Xerxes, I think Hoyland is probably going to go. And I mean, I don't trust Amarim, I'll be honest with you, but now he's had like more than half a season to get, more for him and his players to get more acclimatized to his system. I do think the improvement in attack is just ridiculous. Like I said, last year they weren't just like low quality in attack, but they had no numbers because they sold everybody in January for some reason without replacing. But now 3 new attackers. They're still gonna go for Baleba, which I think if they get Baleba, that's gonna help a lot because their midfield is a bit, it's a bit empty, not enough legs, not enough like control. And I think Baleba is just a bit of a unicorn in that. So I think that would be a great sign for them. Onana, we all know Onana. Onana can be a problem in particular games, but I don't think over the course of the season is too much of a problem. I think they have solid center backs. I just think sometimes the system lets them down. So I don't know if I back Amarim, but I do think they will do better than last year just based on the fact they actually have firepower. Last season it was kind of like United were playing with zero firepower, just nothing. But yeah, so I do have them in seventh. We'll see. I think I might be. I don't know if I'm higher or lower than them than most people, but that is kind of where I have them. Okay. Next up is sixth position, and I have Aston Villa. And I feel like a lot of people are quite low on Villa because they lost Rashford and what's his name? Rashford and Asensio they didn't get them on full deals. But I'm not too worried about that. I think they're already a solid team without those two. I think those two did help with the depth. But then I think they might still get Asensio. They already got another striker in what's the striker's name? I wrote it down. Give me a sec. Gesund, and he scored like 12 goals or something in for Nice last year in the Ligue 1. So it's a decent little striker. I assume he will play second field to Watkins. It looks like Watkins is gonna stay, which I think is massive for them. I think Morgan Rogers is gonna have another big season. I really do. I just have a lot of faith in him. I think the midfield is so solid with Tielemans and McGinn and Kamara and Onana is still there. So I just think that a lot of people, yes, they haven't done too much business, so a few people are low on them. But I just think that at the same time, even though they haven't done too much business, they haven't lost anybody. I know they just lost Jacob Ramsey, but like Jacob Ramsey was a good player. Don't get me wrong, good squad player, but he wasn't like particularly carrying the team. I am seeing links for Leon Bailey to Roma, and that could be a bit more of a problem just because I feel like they don't have too many dynamic wingers. But I think Gesson might play on the left, to be honest. And they also have Malen, who didn't really contribute too much last season because I think Rashford and Asensio kind of blocked his spot. But I think this season is going to be more important. The defense is still very solid. Um, I think Matson's probably going to get more minutes. And again, it's just Unai Emery. So I just think I think they will still be in the fight for UCL football. I'm going to be honest with you. I just think they haven't lost too many players, and they haven't gained too many players. But we kind of know exactly where Villa are, and I think they're just a bit more settled than Manchester United or Spurs right now. So I think it's one of those things, kind of like Liverpool last year. You look at them, oh, no business, no business. But you have to remember, there's still a lot of quality players in this team, and I expect them to be up in those spots again. But I think they might just miss out to the team who I have in fifth, which is Newcastle. And everybody seems to the sound around Newcastle seems to be a bit sour at the moment, just because they've missed out on so many targets. But they have signed players. They got a keeper, which they wanted. They got Ramsdale. Yeah, they wanted a center back. They got Malik Thiaw. They wanted a winger. They got Elanga, and they wanted a midfielder. They got Jacob Ramsey. So they have done the business. I think the thing with Newcastle is that I just think even if they do lose Isak, I think assuming they get a decent quality striker, I just think they'll still be in the top five. Just because I think they have such a solid foundation. They have like great players in pretty much every position. I think keeper Pope is a decent shot stopper, but Ramsdale is better with his feet. But we all know Ramsdale does have that bozo gene. So I think that's why people are a bit worried. But I think he'll be a decent signing. Between those two, they should be fine. I think the fullback pairing is one of the most exciting in the league with Livermento and Lewis Hall. I think center back wise, I think they are good. Botman can really never stay fit, which is a bit of a problem. But Shar, I mean, he's gone beyond everyone's expectations. He's just been so good and Dan Burn for such a long time. And now they have Malik Thiaw. So I think now, even if Botman has these injury issues, they have like this young center back who can kind of stay in with them. Even though I think Botman can probably get over that. I think they have one of the best midfields in the league still, with Joel Linton, Bruno Guimaraes, and Tonali. I think we all saw Tonali. Remember, Tonali didn't start last season. He came in a bit later. So now they're going to have Tonali from the start of the season. I think Jacob Ramsey is also a good addition to that midfield. Kind of gives them a different dynamic, a bit more attacking of a player. They still have, guys like Joe Willock, Lewis Smiley, who can, rotate in and out. And then the front line looks really strong. Anthony Gordon, Harvey Barnes, this guy, Jacob Murphy, who went crazy last season. And now you had Elanga on that, who was like top 3 assisters last season into that attack. I think it does look kind of good. The glaring issue is the striker. If Isak stays, that's a very, very dangerous team. But it looks like he doesn't want to play for them even if he stays. The whole thing got a bit toxic. So I do think if Isak leaves, that's why I'm capping them a 5th, just because I think, yes, they're going to get a striker, but they're not going to get a striker on the level of Isak. I think Isak is by far their best player. Losing a best player is always going to be a problem. But I just think the squad is really solid overall. And Eddie Howe is just a good coach. So I do just back Newcastle generally to still be in those UCL spots. And if 5th is a UCL spot, I do think they will make it. Okay. Next up in 4th place, I have Chelsea. Okay. And the thing for me with Chelsea is I'm quite high on Chelsea. Yeah. I think Chelsea have a lot of really, really good pieces. I was wondering when to put them second or third, third or fourth, but I just kept them 4th because of one particular reason. And it's just, do they have a bags, man? Do they have a guy that I think is going to score 20 goals? I know Cole Palmer did a few years back he scored a lot of penalties, to be fair, but he did it a few years back, and he's a phenomenal player. But I think Joao Pedro is more of a link man. You know what I mean? Like, I think Joao Pedro could score like a good 10, 12 to 15 goals, but he's more of a link man. So which now means that, okay, if he's scoring 10, 12, 15, if Chelsea really want to push into this title race, they need guys like Neto to be chipping in with 10. They need guys like Gittins to chip in with 10. I don't know how much Esteval is going to play. So that's just saying the team I have above them have somebody I know is going to score 20 goals for sure, which is just kind of wow, put them in 4th. But I do think Chelsea really are building something. People have been saying, the project is going well, but we need to add some experience. But I always say I think some of the players who came in early in the project, the Enzos, the Palmers, the Caicedos, they're now becoming those experienced guys. So Chelsea are just gonna keep adding more young guys, and then the experienced guys help the young guys. And eventually, the idea is that the squad should be there. I think they have a very good squad. I'm just not so sure if it's tied to ready. Is all I'm gonna say. I think they will be comfortably in the top four. I don't think it's gonna be too much of a fight. But I mean, I think Liam Delap's a good signing. And Pedro, so we're just completely revamping the attack. Hato is a good player, just fits in a bunch of positions. Esteva, I don't know how much he's gonna place. Kanji Paz are going on loan. Gittins, I mean, I think Gittins is a good player. I don't know if he's gonna score the goals, but I think he's gonna stretch the wings. But yeah, I just feel like here so far I haven't seen like that guy, and maybe one of these guys become that guy. Joao Pedro might become that guy and just take them to the next level. Oh, the keeper situation also, but I'm not too bad on. Sanchez does have a bozo moment in him like every other game, so that's a bit of a problem. But I mean, in terms of sales, I don't think they've sold anyone too important, to be honest with you. So they've kind of kept the most important players, made a lot of money off players who are kind of on the fringes, except Madueke, who I think wasn't really good enough. So I think Chelsea are gonna be right up there, and I think Chelsea have very high upside, but I'm just kind of looking at I think the teams above them have a higher floor than Chelsea, which is why I put Chelsea fourth. But I really do think they could push for something, but it's just the reason in fact, you know what? The reason I have Chelsea fourth is because of the team right above them. Manchester City have a player that goes by Erling Haaland, and look, Haaland is gonna get 20 goals. We know this, so that's just kind of something like the other Chelsea don't have. And I also feel like City, even last season, which was a poor season for City and a really good season for Chelsea last season, City still finished above Chelsea. So I think City have made a lot of business actually. Let's quickly go to Man City. Obviously, they've lost some important players, particularly Kevin De Bruyne. But then if we're thinking about KDB, I mean, what do you think? I think KDB was past his peak. I do think he could still have contributed, but I don't think he's gonna be as big a loss as. I think the loss of KDB, we already saw it last season in terms of him declining and they fell off. So I don't just think that the loss is gonna come now. I think we already saw it. Is what I'm trying to say. Rodri's back, but we don't quite know the level he's gonna be at, which is kind of why I have them at third. They haven't really lost anyone too important. Grealish, no, nobody. They haven't lost anyone important except KDB, who's going to be. It's a new era for them. And I think that level of quality with KDB, we already saw the lack of it last season, and I feel like it's really hard to replace. I think Cherki is a very, very, very exciting signing. Just an absolute magician of a footballer. Kind of similar to KDB. He's very, very creative, but he also has a bit more dribbling than KDB, I'd say, in tight spaces. But he's not as creative as KDB in terms of the final ball, at least. And it's big shoes to fill. So I think City are signing a lot of good players and are pushing for a championship in a few years. But I'm not quite sure, like, with all the changes this season, based on how they performed last season, I'm not quite sure it's good enough. I think the big thing is going to be Rodri. I think if Rodri gets back up to the level, they will be in the title race. I think they will be in a race for most of it. I just don't think they can win it. But I think the defense, it's probably going to be Ruben Diaz, Vardio, which I think is good. I think their center backs have been struggling for a while, like Stones, Kanji. I'm not quite sure they're at the level anymore. But I think pushing Guardiola into center back, playing Aït-Nouri on the left, will be very helpful for them. They still don't have a right back, so I'm expecting Matthias Nunez, which I'm not so sold on. But, he's a decent player. I think the midfield will probably be Rodri, Reyners, and Cherki. So we'll see. You saw last year the midfield game bypassed. It's just Rodri, maybe not 100%. Gonna fix all of that? I'm not so sure. But I think, I think City have a very high ceiling. I think City could win the league. I really do. But I'm just kind of looking at the floor. And I think the two teams above them have a higher floor than Manchester City. So that's just kind of what I'm thinking. I think Phil Foden as well. I mean, he kind of seems to be the forgotten one, Can Foden have? Because when we look at their attackers right now, we know what Haaland's going to do. But then there's Doku. Savinho looks like he might be on the way out. There's Cherki. There's Foden. And there's Oscar Bob as well. If you ask me who's likely to reach a new level compared to what they did last season, between all those guys besides Haaland, obviously, I think it's Foden. I think Foden is more likely to reach a higher level than Doku, because he's shown me that before. Obviously, I think if Doku, finally gets the end product, that's going to be massive for City. But I back Foden to do that more. So I think if Foden can get to that level, he probably gonna have less of a creative burden now with Cherky coming in. So maybe he just stays on the right hand side and right half space and becomes a sharpshooter. I think you just need Foden back to some level of quality. But yeah, pretty much I've Man City third. I've been going for a long time now. My thoughts are starting to get a bit jumbled. But in second place this season, psych. I have Arsenal. Arsenal. The Arsenal. I have Arsenal in second place. And why? I think they have a higher floor than Manchester City. I think Arsenal pretty much control every single game they're in. They have a ridiculous defense. I think Arsenal are going to be very similar to last season. I think Raya, that defense is so set. Raya, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, and probably Lewis Kelly. Although I think we'll see more of Calafiori this season if he's fit. They signed Mosquera. They just have a lot of options back there. Ben White is still there. They have a lot of options. And I think in midfield, I do think they have improved. I think Partey was time to go for multiple reasons. But I think Zubamendi is going to be good. I think we saw him in that preseason game. He looks like, he just has that like Spanish little passing range and just like control. He looks so smooth on the ball. Does he have the defensive nous? I do think so. Maybe not like the legs to get around as much, but when you're playing with Declan Rice, you're fine. Personally, if I was Arsenal, I would like to see Declan Rice and Zubamendi play as a double pivot as opposed to Rice occupying that left half space. I'm not so big on him there. I'd like to see a double pivot and then allow Odegaard or, if they do get Eze or somebody, even though that's not looking too likely, which I'm going to get to go more forward. I think that'll probably be better, but I don't think Arteta's going to do that. I think set pieces will still be big for them. The attack, Martinelli, he's decent, but is he a title winner? I don't know. And as the guy they've brought in, Madueke, much of an improvement? I don't think so. I don't think Madueke is much of an improvement. And then Saka, we know what Saka is. Hopefully he stays fit this whole season. That's a ridiculous footballer. And Gyökeres, I think Gyökeres is going to score goals. I have no doubt in my mind. Arsenal create chances. And this guy, he scores goals. I think sometimes we've gotten too over analytical with football. We see a guy score 50-something goals. And you're telling me about his I don't know, his close control. I don't care. He doesn't need close control in the Arsenal team. They have more than enough of that. Gyökeres needs to be in that box and score the goals. And I think he's going to do that. So I do think they have had good signings. I think they kind of make it like Arsenal signed a lot of players, but really for me, it's 3 players. Zubamendi, Madueke, and Gyökeres. I think Zubamendi will be good, but I think the guy who was there before was already decent. So I think the VORP, like value over replacement player, I don't think it's going to be that high because the guy, it's not like they had a flop there, I think striking could be very big because even though I think Havertz and Marino did decent jobs, I think they need a classic striker, someone who's just going to score the goals. So I think Gyökeres is going to be a big improvement. And I think if the team above them hadn't done as much as they had done, I would probably have Arsenal as my favorites to win. But the team above them did not rest on their laurels. And then I think the biggest thing is for me is Madueke. I think Martinelli was a position they could really have improved on. And I feel like they just went for a guy that's, on the same level. I don't really get the signing. It was a lot of money as well. I hope for that. First, I like to say I think the way Arsenal fans have reacted is a bit weird. I don't understand. I mean, he's at the club now. It is what it is. You just have to hope he does well. But like signing petitions and all sorts of cringe things, I don't think it was cool. But personally, I also don't understand the signing. So I can understand why people are a bit iffy about it. Like, he's a decent player, rotation. But is he going to be that starting left winger? We'll see. Can he do it? I mean, maybe he can. Maybe he proves me wrong, but I just have Arsenal finishing second. They're above City just because of their floor. That defense is so good. They're always going to score set pieces. I think you're going to score more goals now if Saka stays fit the whole season. Gyökeres is going to score goals. So, yeah. And champions of England. 21 times. Hopefully, I have Liverpool on top. And let me just touch on this Isak situation. What do you guys think about it? I think it's gotten a bit out of hand. I don't really know. I think there's probably been a breakdown of communication somewhere in this deal. I think, to me, it seems like Isak felt like he was promised to leave, and then this team comes in with like a ridiculous offer, and then you reject it, and it's like, oh, but I already told you I want to leave. What more do you want? But then at the same time, it's like they're saying that, we want to go and get some replacements first, but then they haven't really made any moves to get any replacements. So I think Isak just really wants to move, and he's really pushing for it. Maybe he has gone a bit too far, saying, "Oh, I'll never play for you again." Maybe that's just a bit too much. But at the same time, maybe it feels like Newcastle are trying to keep him there. As for Newcastle, I understand you have a player contracted. You want to make sure he goes for the full value. You don't want to lose him at the expense of your squad. But I feel like at this point, when a player is already so disgruntled and causing problems, I think just take the money, maybe get up to 120, 130, take the money and go sign somebody, man. You can really improve your squad with that. But that's besides it. I think with or without Isak, I still have Liverpool in the first position. And obviously, a little of that is bias, but I just think, first thing I think Wirtz is going to be. I mean, we already saw a little bit of Wirtz in the Community Shield. Him and Ekatike had some really nice close control link-ups. Things I couldn't imagine happening between Darwin Núñez and Diaz, who are both gone. I do think Liverpool are a bit light in attack. I know we've said Chiesa should not. We've asked Chiesa not to leave just because of that reason. So Chiesa is gonna be there. Hopefully, he gets more minutes. That's one thing Aisha had with Slot. Slot just kind of had like a few players who was like he never really gave a chance, but he didn't trust them. He didn't trust them, but he never really gave them a chance. Players like Chiesa, Harvey Elliott. So it looks like Harvey Elliott's gonna go. The thing I would say for Liverpool is that I think Liverpool will be champions because the signings, Ekatike, I think Kirk is a good left back signing. Robertson is still there. Losing Trent is going to be big, but I think Frimpong looked good in the Community Shield. It's going to be a bit of a different dynamic between him and Salah, so it might take them a while to sort that out, but I think it should be fine. I think Gakpo is one player who's going to have a big season because now that left side is pretty much fully his own. I wouldn't be surprised if we do get Isak, maybe Ekatike shifts out to the left a bit more. But it looks like at least for the first few games, he's going to hold that spot. So I need a better performance than what I saw against Palace. I think he was good most of the season last year, honestly, until he got injured. So I have faith in Gakpo. I think Ekatike looks good. Like, I think Ekatike in that game just kind of showed, like, yes, they still want Isak, but I'm going to make sure my name is heard. Salah, we know Salah, he does have some rough patches. Everybody's writing him off, but I think he's going to do good things again. Maybe not to the extent of last season, but I think he's going to do good things again this season. Yeah, and I just think the midfield, we have so many options now. Curtis Jones is still there. I like the bit of what I saw in Szoboszlai, the deeper role in against Palace. Although it was a bit rusty, he misplaced a few passes. But I didn't mind that. I think we'll probably see more of that because we do need his energy. I think McAllister and Gravenberch, particularly Gravenberch, I think Gravenberch still has levels to go up to. So I'm hoping he does even better than last season. People are saying Van Dijk is washed based on the Community Shield. But I mean, the thing I'm not worried, Van Dijk's mistakes, he did make two big mistakes in the game, but they were kind of like mental lapses in concentration more so than physical, which is why I'm not too worried. I feel like, it's kind of like a preseason game, you're not like fully in the, you're not like fully ready for the season mentally. But it wasn't like, he was getting like done for pace or being bullied by Mateta. It was more so like lapses in concentration, making bad mistakes, which I don't expect for him to last the season. I do think we're missing some center back depth, but now we have this young kid, Leone. He's just come in, so I want to see what he's going to do. And yeah, I think we've just spent a lot of money. We've revamped the squad, but I think some core pieces are still there in terms of Gravenberch, Salah, McAllister, Van Dijk, and Konate, at least for now. Alisson as well are still there, Gakpo. So I feel like there are still some core pieces there. I feel like the guys we've lost were guys who were contributors, but not like super important, besides maybe Diaz, because Diaz scored the second most goals for us last season. But I'm hoping that with the new striker, the striker can take over that goal board. And so, yes, I do just have Liverpool winning the league. I think this is going to be a tough season. I think it's going to be a fun season. I'm really excited to see what a lot of teams do this season all around Europe. But I do have Liverpool winning the league. And yeah, this is my final league table. Whew. What else is there? Top goal scorer. I'm going to give it to Haaland. I think before last season, people were kind of saying that as long as Haaland is in the league, he's going to win every golden boot. And I think last season was a freak season from Salah. But I think pretty much we're going to see Haaland return to, being the top scorer. It wouldn't surprise me at all. Top assister. I think I will give it to Mo Salah. I just think that right now, Mo Salah is really in his passing back. I think Saka is also a good shout because he had a lot of assists before he got injured last season. But I just feel like Salah, he creates so many chances, and now I'm hoping that the new guys we have will be better finishers. So I will give it to that. And yeah, is there anything else? Player of the year. I'm not so sure. I don't see Haaland needs to go crazy to win it. Salah could also win it again if Liverpool win the league. But I feel like it's possible if we get Isak, Liverpool could win the league, and Salah doesn't even win Player of the Year. So I'm not too sure. I'm not Champions League. I'm going to talk about that later. But yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, I think that is pretty much my thoughts. Let me know where you think I went terribly, disastrously wrong. Let me know my worst take here. Let me know your hot takes for the season. And yeah, let me know how excited you are. I'm super excited, man. Tomorrow is going to be awesome. But yeah, let me know what you think of the list. Let me know what you think of my thoughts. If I did say anything like really stupid that you don't agree with, let me know. I want to know, no matter how stupid you think it is. Let me know. Let me know your own thoughts. Any teams that you think I'm underrating, overrating, any players you think could really break out this season, I want to know. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. It's good to be back. I'm going to be consistent now. The season is on. I'm going to be uber consistent, posting at least once or twice a week. I have a few other stuff to do, so it's not easy for me, but I want to be posting at least once or twice a week. I love this game. I'm so excited for the Prem to be back. And yeah, man. Shout out to all you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Yeah. Have a good day. Have a good weekend. Enjoy the summer. Drink water. And yeah. Peace out, guys.